Daniel, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hello, you all. Can you hear us pretty good? Is our picture all right?
Yes.
Maybe we
Can
get
you hear
upset at
me?
some of these papers in front of us. Do we look a little crooked too? I think so. Do we look crooked? No, that's maybe straight.
Y'all don't look crooked. Y'all look fine.
All right, good. That's what we wanted to hear. What was that? Sound like Leah.
No, this is Bartley.
Changed my name.
Where
For Wage
you?
Hour.
Whoa, you have a microphone.
Bartley, can you hear me, Bartley?
Welcome to the chat.
I can hear you, Miss Pusley.
Okay, yeah, great, because they had problems earlier. Thank you. How you doing?
Will it let me change the screen name?
Wonderful.
Thanks,
wonder.
Bartley.
Sweet. Do you all know if it's a way for me to change the screen name?
We don't really see any screen name. We just see your face. We just
What?
see the office. We don't even see his.
It doesn't say Daniel King.
Yeah, when you're
Like, we see
talking.
C. Bartley, Ralphine,
It says
DOS,
Daniel
web-based.
King.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
change
it says-
that to Wage Hour.
Go to edit.
Okay.
At the top, yeah, left, edit.
I wouldn't imagine you can do it that way unless it came to wage hour.
Mm.
Oh, goodness.
No, that's for people to see as they join in.
What about those three little dots right there?
Where you see three little
Go,
dots.
go scroll back
Down
to
here?
No, go to back to the back, yeah, right there. Go down, 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 down onto like where I'm pointing, and then go right.
Oh.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
No. Let me leave and come back in. Maybe it's on the.
Bartley, can you hear me now? Tell you something.
I can hear you.
My
I can
right
hear you with no problem.
other eye, the right eye is totally red.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The right eye is totally red today.
Oh no.
The opposite eye, right? You know. So I have a 4 o'clock appointment. Maybe
Oh, good. I'll sort you out.
probably conjunctivitis now.
Yeah.
Hate them having these eye problems.
Yeah. As long as you get that sorted out.
It comes with getting old.
Are you coming in tomorrow?
This isn't conjunctivitis.
Oh, if you do, you can't come in then.
Exactly, because it just
For at least 3 days.
yeah, it's been kind of like fit. I think I told you feelings.
I'm sorry?
I told you, it felt like it was heavy feeling, and I thought it was the cataract. So
Uh-huh.
maybe I've had it for a while, so they'll let me know if it is. They'll let me know it.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Is there an issue getting the PowerPoint up?
I don't think it's an issue.
No, are we ready for it? Put it
Um,
up there.
we could probably, yeah, maybe just put that up and then. Bing.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, good morning. It's Mamadou.
Morning. How is it?
We ready when you are, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm looking. I do not see Alan.
Yeah. I know that we had to have 6 individuals present to have a quorum to begin the meeting.
Perfect.
I'm only seeing 5 right now.
So maybe we can wait
Yeah,
another.
yeah, I'll text him now.
Period. Perfect. Okay. So if everyone is ready, I will get started. Good morning to you all. Welcome to the second Tipped Workers Coordinating Council meeting. As the elected chair of this council, I am calling the meeting to order. I want to thank you all for participating. Today's agenda is as follows. Call to order and a roll call. We'll approve the previous meeting's minutes. Offer time for public comments. I think the next agenda item that I have is an overview of the presentation of the minimum wage increase. Okay, yes, we are doing that. The presentation of minimum wage increase for July 1, presented by the Office of Wage Hour. We'll discuss some current events, particularly around Del Mar and the issues that they had with some of their tip workers, and then adjourn this meeting. I will begin the roll call now. Alan Karnofsky, Department of Employment Services. Are you here, sir?
Present.
John Cool. I hope I'm saying your name right.
Yep, it's pronounced cool. There's no H in my first name though.
We'll correct it for the record.
And that means that he's present. Thank you. Monica Palacio, Office of Human Rights.
Hey guys, this is Mamadou Sambad, Deputy Director for OHR, sitting in for Monica.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
And this is Thomas Deal. I'm an attorney advisor at OHR in a support capacity for Mamadou.
Perfect. Welcome to you as well. Jennifer McCahill, Office of Nightlife and Culture. Jennifer, I thought I saw Jennifer. Yes, I did not. Tracy Javier, representative appointed by the mayor.
Present.
And Zach Hoffman, representative appointed by the chair of the council.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you don't have a quorum.
Why not?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you do not have a quorum to officially start your meeting. You must have at least 6 members to be. Monica is not here. We're missing Jennifer. Is Jennifer here?
I'm sitting in for Monica. I think I already mentioned that. This is
Yeah,
Mamadou Samba.
I understand you're sitting in for Monica, but you're not a member of the committee.
That doesn't make any sense. I'm the OHR
Yeah.
director. If the director
Mr. King, Mamadou is the deputy director of the office, and the legislation clearly indicates that he will be the representative of the office, which is basically an agent of her.
I think I understand what Mr. Watts is saying. He wasn't a sworn in member, so he can't technically take a vote on behalf of Monica. So the other rule, though, in regards to quorum, I think it's based on at least half of the appointed members. So if we have at least,
It's
we need to have at least.
Yeah, we just went through a session advised with with Vega around this, and we were informed there had to be 6 sworn members in order to you can still have a meeting, you just cannot conduct official business until you have a quorum. 6. So we'll reach out to Jennifer now and see Mr. Chair, so we can get her on the call. Okay.
Okay. I wonder if we can continue, but not take any official actions.
That's correct. That's right. We can't do any official action. We're going to get on the horn now to see if we can get Jennifer on the call. Okay.
So in that case, should I not move to approve the minutes from last month?
You can't approve a minutes without having a quorum. You're voting. So let's see if we can get her on the phone real quick.
Cool.
Both my, myself and Aaliyah reached out. We haven't received anything. We could proceed with doing our presentation, which doesn't require a vote or official action.
That works for me as long as it works for everyone else.
Works for me.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to proceed.
Should we just go right into the presentation?
Yes, please.
All right. I am Daniel King. I am the supervisor for the Office of Wage Hours. And joining me today is Mr. Brandon Sorgo, our program manager, and you all know Mr. Watts, the associate director of the office. We wanted to provide you guys with information about the minimum wage increases, and specifically for 2021, some changes. But first, we wanted to start with a little history on these increases. It was enacted by the Fair Shot Minimum Wage Act, and that included increases over 5 years that eventually raised the minimum wage to $15 on July 1st, 2020, and the tip employee minimum wage to $5. As you continue with this act, there's a clause in there that talks about annual increases starting July 1st, 2021, that is based on the CPI increase over the prior year. This is a 12-month increase that's released by the Department of Labor. We've included here on the slide just a recent press release from December of 2020 that showed that the CPI increase for the Washington metropolitan area over the last 12 months was 1.4%. And that's just not for the regular minimum wage. That's also for the tipped employee minimum wage. They follow the same guidelines for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, all urban consumers in the Washington metropolitan statistical area. So with that information, we just did a very simple calculation. We took the previous minimum wage of $15 times the 1.4% and that CPI increase, and that gave us a dollar increase of 21 cents. However, the law specifies that you must round to the nearest nickel, and that's where we came up with the new minimum wage starting July 1st of $15.20. Very similar calculation for the tipped employee minimum wage. It was $5 last year with the 1.4 CPI increase. It was scheduled to raise 7 cents. However, we must round to the nearest nickel, and that's how we got to $5.05. Just some good information for you guys to know that all employers must provide a disclosure to their workers that are going to be receiving that tip minimum wage of $5.05. It needs to be provided to them in writing, and our office has actually created a template for issuing that hiring notice that shows the increase. Also, if an employer wants to set up a tip pooling policy, that policy has to be written out and provided to the workers. A very special consideration about tip pool policies is our guidance from the Department of Labor. You can only include employees that customarily receive tips. So that would be things like waiters, waitresses, bellhops, only counter personnel who serve customers, bussers, and service bartenders. Other categories of workers should not be included in a valid tip pool policy. The last thing we wanted to provide you guys was with the sample notice that we've created. This notice is available right on our website, so any employer can pull this and provide it to their employees because they're required to do so whenever their salary increases or their minimum wage or wage rate increases. At the bottom of the first page, there is a section for them to write out the tip pool policy if they have one. And this is something that should be signed by the employer and the employee. The Office of Wage Hour does a number of investigations randomly across the city to make sure that this practice is taking place. And the restaurant industry and other temp employee industries is a focus of our office. Do you have anything you want to add, Mr. Watts? So I will turn the meeting back over to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. King, for that presentation. May I open it up for questions based on that from the other council members? No question.
Just a quick question. How is the increase being communicated to business owners?
So we have a really robust public education model, which includes notices to over 15,000 businesses that go out electronically. We do ads, we do communication on social media and the like. We also, of course, post this information on our websites. We do business roundtables with appropriate industries and groups as well. We, of course, we provide notices to appropriate businesses who also are responsible for reporting the tip wage. And so we said that out. We also, our office has a public education grant where we have two providers, the Ethiopian Community Invest Group, who we have a goal of nearly 1,000 businesses and 500 employees that they have an able to connect with, where we're also sharing that information on the ground.
Okay, thank you. And I assume there's an enforcement mechanism too if a business is caught not complying.
That's correct. And we actually work with BCRA to see the updated business list to ensure that we're touching base with all appropriate employers.
Got it. Thank you.
And we also have a public notice that is on our website. So when you go to our website, it's quite extensive as well.
Thank you.
Mr. King, can you speak a little bit more to that enforcement as far as penalties? Are there fines or sanctions? And then how does the Office of Wage Hour ensure that any missed wages are paid to employees?
Mr. Chair, I believe that you have a form. I think you want to do another roll call. I see.
So much joy for the mayor. So just back
yeah.
Yes, thank you. I will just start from the top then. To begin the roll call, Alan Karnofsky, Department of Employment Services.
Here.
John Kuhl, Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs.
Present.
Monica Palacio, the Office of Human Rights.
This is Mamadou sitting in for her, and Thomas Dio.
Yes, thank you, Mamadou. And I'm sorry that there's not a, well, I'll just, Jennifer McCahill, Office of Nightlife and Culture.
Hi, this is Roger Sanchez, sitting in for Jennifer McHale today.
Hi, Roger, welcome.
Thank you.
Tracy Javier, representative appointed by the mayor. And Zach Hoffman, representative appointed by the chair of the council.
Here.
Fantastic. Mr. King, can we just go back quickly and talk about enforcement, and then we'll circle back on the agenda?
Sure. So the Office of Wage Hour is open 24 hours to receiving any claims from employees that have not been paid correctly, that we investigate fully in accordance with the guidelines in the DC code. Also, we do random audits, or audits that are initiated what they call sua sponte, by our own accord. These could be based off of a tip that we receive from the public, or from other office, or from employees that are working in the district. And then also just companies that we pick randomly. And we request to review their documentation for payroll, or review the information they have submitted through the tip portal. One of the documents that we request to see when we do investigations is their hiring notice. So if they don't use the notice that is provided as a template by our office, the law provides them with 5 criteria that must be provided in their hiring notice that they created themselves. But one of the big things is making sure that anybody who receives tips gets a proper notification that they received tips on that notice, and whether or not they are included in a tip pool. For any employers that we find who have not provided their employee with a hiring notice, the law also allows us to assess a penalty of $500 per employee. So that's a very strong deterrent to make sure that there is positive communication between the employer and their tip workers to make sure that they understand how they're being paid.
I have a question about what I just heard. Not to out anyone specifically, but I've not once ever received a notice as a tipped worker in my 8 or 9 years of being a tipped worker in the district. So there might
Well,
be a
you may not
disconnect
have
there.
received it in the template that we create, but if you got a
No,
hiring notice,
I've never received one
you would
ever.
hire.
No, not in any form. And also $500 does not sound like a deterrent in any way, shape, or form. That's just my personal opinion. I'm just making a comment
Well,
about
I'd
that.
love to know the name of the establishment and where you work. We didn't receive that. You could tell me that, it'd be great.
So to that end, Mr. King, you mentioned an employee. I don't know, is it a hotline, or how can employees contact the office if they suspect, either in Mr. Hoffman's case, that they haven't received proper notice, or that there may be garnishment going on in their workplace?
Absolutely. The first number that you want to call is here at the Office of Wage Hour. The number is 202-671-1880. We also have an email address, and that is owh.ask@dc.gov. That's owh.ask@dc.gov. And then also on our website are all of the claim forms available for any worker in DC to submit a claim to our office explaining their allegations.
And all these forms are fillable and can be emailed as an attachment.
And are those numbers and addresses, are they required to be posted in businesses?
Yes. So there's a required minimum wage poster that has our contact number on it, as well as the notice of hire that I mentioned. There's a statement in there that includes our contact information.
And that is part of the package that we mail out each year to over 15,000 businesses throughout the district.
Great. May I request then that, at least since one member of the council hasn't isn't familiar with some of the documents, can you would you send copies of, say, a sample poster, right? And then we've got the sample notice of hire here that you're presenting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to comment, I'm not particularly saying that I've had any foul play or anything in my personal work history. What I'm saying is I think maybe it is being overstated how we're communicating this to employers, because I can tell you this is not standard practice in the industry. And I truly believe it's because people don't know about it. And that's just, you know, my comments on the issue. But this is not something that I've ever seen ever in a lot of different jurisdictions, but especially here in multiple different employment situations. So just throwing that out there.
So, you know, so that's very helpful. So, you know, one of the things that we do several meetings a year with the Restaurant Association and their members. And then what we've been trying to do is reach out to those restaurants that are not part of the association as well. And so I think that we will, I'd love to work with you on doing some targeted outreach, particularly for those, you know, to the industry, and look at our additional strategies to make sure we get that information out there. But we, you know, again, as I was saying before, we do rely on the business list that's provided to us from not only from DCRA, but also Department of Health. And so we normally do targeted outreach to and provide this information to those businesses. So I will almost 100% guarantee you that if they're operating legally in the District of Columbia, they have received this information. Now, whether or not they translated it and provided it to their staff, that is another matter. You know, it's a thing that I think that is important for us to know that and know who those are. And not say that they're doing anything wrong, but it's important. But the law requires that this notice of hire document be provided to employees to ensure that they're clear on that their pay, they're clear on how tips and other matters are being handled that relate to their pay. And so, it's, you know, it's imperative that we work in making sure that happens.
I think the communication piece is important because we frequently conducted investigations where an employee may have told us they never received the document, but then the employer produces it with their signature on it, and they look at it and say, "Oh yeah, I got this when I first started 5 years ago," and it has all of the increases for the minimum wage on there. So it just could be a matter of understanding what we're discussing is something that they have received.
Certainly.
It may not look the way that our form looks, because the law doesn't say it has to look that way. The law says it has to have this information. It's something, and the law does allow them to send it to you electronically. And so, you know, very well may be right, but we want to make sure that workers have this. This is a very important tool. And it's one of the first things that we look for when we do an investigation. And I guarantee you, we definitely find when we don't see it.
Definitely. Well, that's great to know.
Now, this was probably going to be a question that I brought up later, but I think we're having a good discussion, so I'll ask it now. Is it required for a business to trying to think of the right way to ask my question. So like the example you just gave where somebody got hired many years ago and they don't remember signing this this document, is it required for businesses to notify their employees that changes are happening, whether it's in regard to the minimum wage or even with a tip pool change or a tip structure change?
Yeah, absolutely. And you answered your question in your question, but the law requires that whenever any of the 5 required information lines that have been provided to the employee changes, that a new document is provided to the employee and signed. Now, with our template, we've had the minimum wage increase from 2016 to 2020 already included. So if they didn't move the business location, or if the name of the employer or the DBA didn't change, there would have been no need for a new form to be provided until July 1st of 2021, because that 20-cent increase and 5-cent increase for the tip minimum wage was not previously on there. So we're expecting, at least for those tip workers, they should be getting something new prior to July 1 of 2021.
Understood. Thank you, gentlemen. Those are all of my questions. I will still leave it open if anyone else has any other thoughts. All right. I believe that should be it. Thank you for your presentation again. Let's circle back and have an approval of the previous meeting's minutes.
I don't believe you have a form. You have a representative from Austin Ivy that not sworn in.
And also,
And human rights.
Wait, I do or I don't?
You don't have a form.
I thought I did.
Yeah. You have a representative from Officer 9, but not the actual.
Oh, because okay, I understand. All right. What else is on an agenda that we can discuss?
Who was sharing the screen? Because we have we can reshare the screen.
with the agenda,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it seems like if I'm seeing this correctly, the only other item is the situation at Del Mar. I hadn't proposed any official business regarding that. I just wanted to, I had some personal questions, but I wanted to open up the discussion for the council as well. Is that something that we can discuss without a quorum?
Yes. I mean, if long as there's no official action.
Great. Perfect. So I have one statement here, and then I'll open up the discussion and circle back with some of my questions. First of all, as some of you may know, or if you don't, 9 employees at the restaurant Del Mar on the waterfront went on strike in May due to allegations surrounding racial bias, sexual misconduct and/or mistreatment, and a new tipping structure that the restaurant instituted, and then I believe, if I understand it correctly, the employees were asking them to do away with. In regards to the discrimination, employees felt they were sometimes singled out unjustifiably because of their clothing at work. In regards to the tipping structure, previously the front of house staff kept their individual tips, but during the pandemic, the restaurant switched to a pooled house system where front of house employees make $5 an hour plus an equal share of tips based on the hours that they work. The Department of Employment Service and the Office of Human Rights were made aware of this incident, and they are available if any members of the council have questions related to claims or next steps. So that's what we'll discuss now. I will open it up first. Do any of you all have any initial thoughts or questions about this situation?
I mean, I think definitely I sympathize with the workers that were, doing, utilizing one set of rules and system and guidance, changed, did not find it, satisfactory, and had requested a change. I think there's a lot bundled together. I've known several people that have worked for Mr. Traboki in the past at multiple different properties, and that is certainly a stressful job to hold. And I think if there was issues with the tip system, I think it should have been recepted. The reception of that news from the staff to the ownership and management should have been more in line with understanding and changing things that needed to be changed, and they clearly didn't do that. And I think you can't expect people to keep working at a job that's stressful and not get the pay that they think they deserve. I think that's totally normal. But I guess I do have a question: if the employees were properly notified the first time, or if they weren't at all notified, can an employer change the system without the consent of the employee? Is that legal? I'm not sure. So that's something I would have a question about.
So, it's a lot to unpack, and so I'm going to talk broadly because we are looking at the matter. I'll use that word, looking at, examining the matter. So I'm going to talk broadly as it relates to that. What is important is by law that any change to any pay structure must be communicated, as we said before, through the notice hiring process. That is what the law requires. As it relates to other issues that may come up, the law is also clear that if an employee raises concerns about their pay and any adverse action happens during that time, it could be issues of not only possible discrimination, but retaliation, which is also against the law in the Minimum Wage Act. And so I think that we are going to do our due diligence to really examine this and the like. And you can talk to the changes.
The changes on the.
Whether they could change the policies and laws.
Yeah, so go ahead.
No. Sorry, I didn't catch you off for speaking. But
Yes, I just wanted to go back to our presentation with the required disclosures. Yep. So as long as that employer is notifying them that they're going to be receiving the tipped employee minimum wage, and then their tips through a tip pooling policy, that's fine. The other caveat is any tips that those employees receive directly belong to them, unless they have been previously informed about the policy for pooling tips. And that comes directly from the DC law as well as the federal law. So we don't know all of the specifics of this situation, but there should always be an opportunity for conversation between those employees and their employer before something is finalized.
yeah, so Mr. King, I think this was one of my questions or issues as well, is that from what I understand you're presenting, the business owner can alter or change the tip and the wage structure, the tip structure in their business whenever they want to, and as long as they get the required signatures, then you just submit the paperwork and it changes hour by hour or day by day. And as workers, right, that especially tip workers, where it's the I guess part of the allure of working for tips is that you are in control of your own destiny, so to speak, right? You make what you take. Or even if it is a pooled house, it's with the idea that you're working as a team, and then therefore what you all make together, you take together. But if the business can just alter or do away with the structure as they see fit, then it takes away some of that agency, not some of it, all of the agency from those workers. So I like, one of my questions was, does a particular tipped structure, whether it's a pooled house or not, does it have to be in place in a business for a certain amount of time?
I'm not aware of any laws that do that. But the law is very specific that you have to provide that information in writing prior to the change occurring. And then that employee has to sign their acknowledgement that the change is occurring. So we've seen situations where employees chose not to accept it. And the employer either had to come up with a different agreement with them, or that employee was moving on to work for a different business.
Right. Except, at least in my experience, that means if I'm a tip worker and the onus is on me to either comply or get a new job, that's much more detrimental to me as an individual than it is as a business, right? It's much easier. I could see that it would be much easier for a business to hire an employee or have managers step in or do whatever they need to do for their business to survive versus, me just coming into work one day and all of a sudden I decide that I don't want to comply with this new situation, but that means that I have to find a new job.
When we examine, we're silent because when we are in examination periods, we just try to absorb information and collect it. So we don't have a real position other than that we need to make sure that the law is being followed, proper notice was given, and that no one's rights were violated. So we will examine. So.
Does the Office of Wage Hour actually talk to the employees in this situation, or do they simply go off of a signed piece of paper record that the employer maintains? So, for instance, in the example that I gave earlier, certainly I may have signed something 5 years ago, but if I'm not completely aware of what that means to me as a worker, how, I'm just curious, like, do you actually speak to the employees in these situations when you do any kind of investigation?
So I'm not going to speak to this situation, but I'll talk a little bit about our investigative strategies, which includes conducting surveys directly with the employees. So sometimes what we do is that we obtain the list of employees through UI records, and we communicate directly with those employees, and they're able to securely communicate with us and provide us with information. We've been, of course, in the midst of our investigation, do get payroll records, and so we retain addresses, information, for example, through the COVID investigations that we're doing, we sent out over 2,000.
It's over. For audits, yes, and then for surveys, it's over 3,500.
3,500 surveys to employees to ascertain whether or not they had any concerns or violations of the law. So we take a proactive approach. So it's not just a complaint base. I will tell you that this particular business, we do not have a active complaint. But that does not, just because we don't have an actual complaint, does not mean that we don't examine and look into concerns that we have. Are there other questions?
I think that's all I have with regard to either the tip structure, um, that part of this issue. But like Mr. Hoffman said, there's a lot here. My next question was going to be about the allegations over sexual harassment. I believe that the complaining employee indicated that he took all the necessary steps, or at least he so thought, right? He contacted the police, contacted the Del Mar and their managers, and that they would not comply with any police investigation, and therefore, the investigation falls flat. What responsibility do employers have, do restaurants have to comply with these sorts of investigations? And if an employee feels as though that it's not, that they can clearly demonstrate that the restaurant is not complying, is there a place that employee can go, whether it's the Office of Human Rights or some other place? I'm honestly just asking for my own clarity.
So we have in our wage law, sexual harassment, in the sick leave law, and also Human Rights also has jurisdiction in this matter. And so if we were to raise a complaint to a business, they have 20 days to respond. If they do not respond, it becomes fact of law. So if they choose not, according to our law, they choose not to respond, and there's a presumption of liability and of guilt. And so then we would then proceed with making a determination in favor of the staffer that raised that complaint. And then we will work with appropriate officers, whether that's the Office of Administrative Hearings or OAG, to pursue the matter.
Hey guys, this is Mamadou at OHR. I just wanted to reiterate, as you already know, that anybody, any resident is free to file a complaint with the Office of Human Rights if they believe that an employee has violated or has not complied with the Human Rights Act. But I want to defer to Thomas Deal to share more on that. There's a limited number of things we can say about the Del Mar case, as obviously, this is still in progress, being investigated. So we're not able to comment publicly about any aspect of this. But let me just defer to Thomas to add a few more things to this, just to provide some more clarity. Thomas, are you there?
Yes, Thomas here. Yeah, I would just reiterate the main points that Mamadou shared, that if anybody believes that an employer has violated the DC Human Rights Act, they can file a complaint with the office. The office's process is confidential, so we can't comment on any potential investigation or investigation. We then mediate between the parties. If that's unsuccessful, we would investigate and render a probable cause determination, which is also confidential. I hope that's helpful.
Mr. Deal, just a question. So after investigations are finished, nothing about any investigation is ever publicly released?
No, although indirectly, if it's sort of contingent, if the case does not settle, that is, if the parties don't reach a mutual agreement, and we certify the case to the Commission on Human Rights for a hearing to determine whether a violation actually occurred, and if so, to award damages, the commission proceeding is a public hearing. So indirectly, I would imagine that aspects of the, or things that were included in the investigation would come out in that hearing. But OHR's investigations are not themselves public. So that's a choice in the statute. An individual, an aggrieved person, can file either with OHR or in court, and court matters, except under exceptional circumstances where things are done under seal, are public. The advantage of OHR's process being confidential, we have an extremely high settlement rate. And it also, individual aggrieved people may not want all of what happened to them to be public. So it's a viable, complete alternative to the court process.
Certainly.
So Mr. Deal, it sound whenever I hear a phrase like an extremely high settlement rate, it worries me just a little bit because the idea of a business settling with an individual, I mean, you're obviously right. A lot of times folks do not want their situations aired out in public, but it also suggests to me that there's a power dynamic going on. In particular, since I'm seconding what Mr. Hoffman said, which was that Fabio is notorious in the industry for years. It's just sort of understood that if you work in one of his restaurants, you deal with abuse, you deal with long hours and being overworked, underpaid, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, so on and so forth. And you just deal with it because either A, maybe you do make enough money, or B, working for him for 2 years allows you the opportunity to do whatever you want with your career. That's the understanding. And the fact that he's allowed, that group is allowed to operate that way, is troubling, right, for all of us. Particularly when there's plenty of groups that are sort of emulating him, chefs and owners and so on and so forth. So I don't know if I was leading to a question. I'm saying that from what I'm hearing from both the Office of Human Rights and Mr. King at Wage Hour, is that largely these investigations are complaint driven. And if that's the case, I would definitely suggest that we need more outreach and more communication to employees, to tip workers, that how to file these complaints and the confidence that the complaints will be confidential, but also that there should be more public scrutiny. I think and please correct me if I'm wrong, but what Mr. Hoffman is suggesting is that if none of these situations are ever aired out in public, there's no reason for businesses to not operate in ways that are detrimental to their employees.
So, Mr. Chair, I didn't say that they get more complaints. Actually, we conduct more random audit than we do the complaints, and we find more violators through survey and random. We're actually proactively engaging employees to understand what's happening in the workplace, and so that's quite the opposite, for us. So we're able to uncover many matters because we actually have individuals out on the street meeting with employees, meeting with employers, because we're sending, we're identifying who they are, reaching out to them to gather information. So I can't change the complaint process and how it goes, but for us, we will make the determination, administrative determination. Of course, the law provides those individuals to appeal, and that appeal normally goes to Office of Administrative Hearings, which has their own processes in place on how they adjudicate those matters. And then once a decision is made, then that decision is enforced in coordination with the Office of the Attorney General. And so, of course, they have their own processes in place. And so I find that many of our complaints are because we actively we engage employees outside of the normal process, because I think that what we have found with the proactive approach is that one, we've been able to right many of the wrongs that we've seen with wage theft in the district, as well as any other employee rights that have been violated.
This is Thomas Deal again. Both the Office of Human Rights and the Office of Attorney General are able to investigate systemic violations and then pursue sort of broader public interest relief to correct anything that's going on. But again, I want to emphasize, I'm not commenting on, and the office isn't commenting on any particular situation. I'm providing information about our process.
If I could just say one thing, I think Chairman and I are kind of lobbying this ball back and forth on this tiny tennis court that we have here. I don't know that anyone on the council that's been appointed as a worker is necessarily criticizing or suggesting or any kind of judgment on how things are operating. I think this is honestly the first time anyone in the industry has had a real ability to kind of kick the tires and open up the hood and see how things work. And we're trying to get a very good understanding of how exactly things interact with us as workers through the workforce and their employers and the employers and the government and workers and the government and all the Venn diagrams that are happening, so that while we are overseeing the implementation of the legislation and the industry as we are charged with, but there may be potential policy recommendations that this council could make in the future to encourage everyone and empower everyone here in their various departments to do the best work that they are able to do, and to make sure that the law fits with the mandates of the residents and the people that put you in the positions that you have. And I think that's what we're trying to get through now. So please bear with us as we ask these questions, because a lot of people, I think the three of us here are probably the most informed workers in the district, and we clearly don't know everything. So I can only tell you that the amount of information goes down exponentially for every worker that isn't here in this meeting currently. And our job is to make sure that we're representing the interests of those workers that maybe aren't aware that there are things like this out there. And maybe there's employers that aren't aware about things like this. And just the entire situation is about informing everyone properly, and then seeing if there is maybe adjustments that need to be made that we can recommend to either the council or the mayor or different departments to include in certain things. So I think that just is important to be said.
What I feel restaurant workers are fed up with, especially after the pandemic. Employers need to pivot into a better environment for us. And my question is, are there programs that employers can maybe enroll in to help them navigate situations like this to make a better, fairer work environment for their staff?
So one of the requirements of the new law is that all managers who work in establishments that provide tips to workers will be required to attend sexual harassment training. And so that certification process will be managed by Office of Human Rights. Our office will collect those certifications and which we will use to audit and to ensure compliance with the law.
And then also they're required to have training on the minimum wage laws.
Yeah, and they're required to have training on all labor laws and the like as well, which we will definitely offer and conduct as well as we always have done.
This is Thomas Deal again. Yeah, just to piggyback on that, the Office of Human Rights primary role in the new law that this committee is discussing is to certify vendors to provide the sexual harassment training to employees at employers with one or more tipped wage workers. Also, I think relevant to an earlier comment, all covered entities under the DC Human Rights Act are required to post a notice of rights, including the ability to file a complaint with the Office of Human Rights in a place that would be conspicuous to their employees, for example.
I want to jump on that point you made, Mr. Deal. This might be a question for Alan, but I was recently informed by Councilmember Alyssa Silverman that the portal that was part of the piece of legislation of which we are here now in this council, to have all of these things we're talking about available online in a portal that's translated into multiple different languages for residents of the district, has been funded but has not been fully implemented. And I'm wondering where this council sits on seeing that implemented fully, and what are we waiting on? It's been funded. It was funded in the last budget. Do we have any updates on where that is?
Watts can correct me if I'm wrong. So I think there was funding last fiscal year. This
fiscal year.
This current fiscal year. That was one-time funding that is meaning it's not going to be in next fiscal year's budget for the TIP portal. So Watts, is that right?
Yeah, while this law was passed several years ago, this law wasn't funded until October 1st, which is the beginning of the district fiscal year. And so once we received funding, we began work on launching the portal, or launching it in accordance to the new legal requirements and changes in the law. And we're aiming to have that up by September 30th. And so we have been sitting, we just received funding this fiscal year. And so it's a process to get a new system up and running. And so so our system is also being built in coordination with the UI, employee ESSP system. And so both those systems will go online simultaneously.
So that you said September 30th of 2021?
That's the goal.
Okay.
One quick question going back. You mentioned that managers are required to undergo sexual harassment training and also training on the minimum wage requirements. Is diversity and inclusion training required as well?
It's not in the
I
law.
don't know. Maybe it's for OHR.
Yeah. See.
I'm sorry, this is Thomas again. What was the question?
Is diversity training mandatory for restaurant managers?
Under this law, it requires sexual harassment training for all employees at employers that have one or more tip wage workers.
So in terms of, this is where my expertise lacks, but would it be possible for this council to recommend an amendment to that law that requires also diversity, inclusion, bias training? Mandates it, I should say.
Are you asking me?
I'm not sure. It's open question. Open question.
So this is Thomas Deal again. I'm not sure if the mandate of this committee includes making recommendations. I don't know the answer to that immediately.
I did have one question about the sexual harassment training, Chairman, if you don't mind me jumping in here.
Well, I don't mind, but I do want to get. I think this is important. I think any law that mandates sexual harassment training should mandate diversity training as well. I don't understand why that wouldn't be included. So but in general, I'd like to know if this committee can request or suggest policy changes.
So this is why. So one, our position is that if it's in the law, we will enforce it.
Yes.
So if it's in the law, we will enforce it. So part of your so you have to go back and look at the statute that established this body, and part of that charge is to improve coordination and function of wage policy for tip workers, investigations into tip wage theft involving tip workers, and reporting mechanisms for tip working. And so you have a charge around that. I can't tell this body, what, you want to recommend something or not. But what I will tell you that if it's in the law and I have the authority to do it, I will do what's in the law that, within my authority.
Yes, I understand that. I'm asking if it's possible for us to recommend a change to the law.
I think
Mr. Chair, you're a citizen of the District of Columbia. You can recommend anything you like.
Okay. Can I ask for assistance? I don't know if I'm sorry if I'm not. I'm
follow you,
but
Mr. Chair.
okay. Okay.
Chair, we can review what I think Watts is saying is we have to be careful to ensure that we're doing what's within the statute for this council. And we'll triple check to see if that's something that could be fall within our, given duties within the statute.
Thank you. Let's circle back to that. Mr. Hoffman, ask your question, please, about sexual harassment.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm not muted. I just wanted to ask the team over at OHR. I've heard from actually a few operators and some people at RAMW that they're actually unhappy with the fact that OHR is trying to certify additional purveyors and servicers of the training materials when they have a federally recognized program ready to rock and roll and that they can start getting implemented within operators. So I just want to know why we're not moving as quickly as we can to get, you know, a federally recognized program implemented and training these managers when there's clearly a need in the industry to have that training happen.
Thomas, are you
This
able
is,
to take that?
oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mamadou.
Oh, that's fine. I was just going to throw that question back to Thomas, but I'm not. You mentioned people are dissatisfied. Do you have any additional information? Did they file? Was there who are those people that are dissatisfied with what we're going to have?
Well, in a discussion I had with some members of RAMW's executive council, they said they want to start training managers with the program that's federally recognized as acceptable in a couple different municipalities as well as on the federal level, but they're not sure that it would meet the standards of this law because OHR hasn't certified the program or done such a thing to make it, you know, acceptable. So they haven't started doing that yet, but they would like to because they want to be in compliance with the law.
Well, quite honestly, this is my first time hearing about it. I can double check with our director of communications and outreach or training to get back to you on where that stands. But as of now, I've never heard of it. It's my first time, but I can definitely circle back. Unless Thomas, you have any information pertaining to this you want to share, we'll just have to circle back with you guys on this one.
This is Thomas Deal again. Yeah, I think that's right. We'll need to follow up. I am aware that we're in the process of hiring a director for the tipped wage worker program. So ostensibly, you know, the certifications will come shortly.
And well, actually, let me just say this, right? So we have already hired a manager for the tipped wage program. I was personally involved with the interview process. That person will start on the 21st, which is next week. Once that person comes on board, that person will be responsible for standing up the program and anything relating to that. So, a big reason as to why this was delayed is, you know, we had a year of, you know, pandemic. We're home, things are slow. HR is, you know, tends to be slower. Hiring people has been a lot slower than we anticipated. So we have now gotten over that hump. And as of next week, things will start to get off the ground and you should see immediate impact after that.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding anything that we've talked about? I do not have any more. So just I think I have one, maybe go back. Just at OH wage Office of Wage Hour, please, if you could just send to the council your like I don't know, I guess PDFs of what is mandatory to be posted or, you know, supplied to employees in restaurants regarding
All notices and laws will be that.
yes.
It's all available on the website, so I'll give you guys a link, and they are linked right here on the website.
We'll send it.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I believe that, the Office of Human Rights will present at the next, on their function, their office at the next meeting. It's correct.
Yes, that is correct.
So we will work on the agenda for your approval.
And then Mr. Karnowski, hope maybe we can connect offline about my questions.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, thank you very much. Great. So I believe we have reached the end of the meeting. Would anyone like to provide a motion to adjourn this meeting?
It's not an official
Yeah.
meeting, so you don't have to do the motion.
Yeah,
You
we're
can close it.
Yes, that's right. Okay, perfect. So
Al,
in that
Alan,
case, less formal.
I think it might be helpful to send a reminder to the members of the committee, just reminding them that because of this quorum issue, that they can't send people in their place, they need to be present. Just so we don't
Yeah.
run into this again next time.
Yeah, we could do that. And then we can work in regards to the next meeting, Jared. We'll work with you and get some other agenda items. I know we mentioned OHR, but if there's anything else, get input from the committee members for next time.
So actually, I did have one other question. I thought from our last meeting, you mentioned that there are still 2 appointments available. Is that correct or not?
My read is there are 4, 2 from the DC Council and 2 from the mayor's office. Technically, one is representing the Restaurant Association, and I forget what the other one was.
Alan, just because I just read the legislation earlier this meeting, there's one more from the council as a worker. There's one more from the council as an employer that employs at least one tipped minimum wage worker, and a representative from the hotel union and a representative from RAMW. So that I think I have is 4.
Yep. So we will continue to, ask the mayor's office and the council who, they intend to appoint if they're going to make appointments, hopefully soon.
Yeah, particularly an employer, I think would be very beneficial. So whatever I can do to push for that appointment, I'm happy to do.
And Mr. Chair, I also would like to recommend at some point that the office on open meetings do a training for the members, because it's very, very informative and helpful around the requirement of the Open Meetings Act, and just so that you all can know all of the, particularly, for yourselves. They'll conduct that for you.
Thank you. Yes, happy to do that as well.
All right, we'll work on coordinating and give you some suggested dates. Okay?
Hopefully before next meeting, certainly.
Okay. If you do that at the next meeting, if you want that to happen, we can see if we can make that happen.
Works for me. Okay. If no one has anything else, thank you very much.
Great.
Thank
For
you.
those that step in, thank you for doing that. And we'll see you all in a month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Happy to be here.